You're listening to the Faith and Work Podcast, where we explore ways to serve God and others in our daily work to bring life and hope to workplaces and cities.
Welcome to the Faith and Work Podcast. I'm Ross Chapman, your host, and today we're bringing you a special episode. We're going to replay 2 talks from our most recent Business for the Common Good, which is an event we've hosted every year. And this year's theme was really awesome. We focused in on this idea of mercy, which is not a normal word you associate with business. But we wanted to ask the question, what if mercy became common in commerce? So we're playing on the idea of commerce being common mercy, which, do not quote me to any of your friends, it is not etymologically accurate, but it is theologically inspiring and intriguing. And we really wanted to reframe commerce for people. When you hear the word commerce, we want you to think, this is a way that I can make mercy more common in my daily business activities. So you're going to hear from Jeff Haanen, who's the founder of Denver Institute, and he's going to challenge us first with the idea that if you want to be in leadership and extend mercy, you need to recognize that you as a leader have been extended mercy. You've received it because you are a dysfunctional person just like everyone else. And so you need to recognize that is true of your story. And so therefore you can extend it to others because you have the humility to recognize that in yourself. And Jeff does an incredible job sharing out of his own leadership dysfunction. And he would challenge us to recognize our failures, the ways that we wish we showed up differently. Those are opportunities to receive God's mercy. And it's an incredible way to think about how we can then reposition our business to extend mercy to others and pursue the common good. And then you're going to hear from Karla Nugent, who was a founding partner of Wayfield Group, which then is now part of Loenbro, and she serves as the Chief Revenue Officer. If you've been around the Denver Institute a while, you probably have heard about Karla before. She's one of our favorite speakers. You're going to love this talk because she actually helps us understand how you operationalize mercy in your business. It's a $100 million plus company, and they are doing incredible work serving the community, their customers, and their employees, and they're extending mercy everywhere they can along the way. It's an incredible story. Listen closely to both Jeff and Karla as you engage in this episode. We're very excited, and obviously we want you to think as you're listening, how can I extend mercy? How can I make it more common in commerce?
Well, hi, everybody. Yeah, welcome to Business for the Common Good. Thanks for braving the snow. It's a joy to be back around friends. Really, it feels like family. This is my favorite place to be in any single year. You know, last year I was at a Denver Institute fundraiser, and I got in the car and I said to my wife, these are some of the brightest, most godly people in the city of Denver in that room. Like, why did they let me in at all? And that's actually how I feel today. Like, why did they let me in here? This is just a privilege to be here. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this theme of mercy today. Let's go back over that story, the parable of the Good Samaritan. So here's how the story goes, right? So one of the teachers of the law wanted to have a theological debate with Jesus, which is probably not a good idea, but wanted to have a theological debate with Jesus, and says, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus responds with the great commandment. Okay. He said, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then Luke says he wanted to justify himself, so he asked a follow-up question and says, who really is my neighbor? Right? So Jesus tells this story, and you guys know the story. The story is a guy's headed out of town. He's attacked by robbers, left by the side of the road for dead. A priest and a Levite, the good guys, actually passed by, didn't want to touch him, probably because they didn't want to become ceremonially unclean, but they just sort of passed by. And this other guy says something different, right? The foreigner, the half-breed, presumably a businessman with some means, he says, okay, we're going to help out, hucks him on a donkey, pays for his rent, pays for his medical bills, right? And helps him get back on his feet again. And so Jesus asks in this story, who was the neighbor? The one who had mercy on him. And that's the theme of today's event, mercy, mercy. Let's think about this story briefly. Who are you in this story? You know, oftentimes when I read this story, I think, I'm this guy. I'm the Good Samaritan. We're at an event called Business for the Common Good. I'm the one that's going to show up. I'm going to be help. I'm going to be charitable. I'm the good guy, right? But when I read it again and I think about my actual day-to-day life, I'm probably this guy. I'm the one that's half dead on the side of the road, actually in need of mercy. You know, I think in business culture, we lionize founders, probably to an unhealthy degree. Those are the ones who take risks and persevere and fuel the economy. But at least from my experience, founders can be an unhealthy and dysfunctional bunch, at least has been in my own experience. Yeah, the things you see on LinkedIn is not necessarily what life is really like, right? So here's what you didn't see, at least in my story. You didn't see the time that I was in a meeting and I told my team I would be ashamed if we didn't get more people to register for that event. And I put my own insecurity and shame right on the team. Completely inexcusable, but is what I did one day. You didn't see the time that I was slighted by a customer who was wealthier, smarter, and more humble than me, and I felt overlooked, and I got back into my car and I was just fuming with anger and frustration. You didn't see the time that I was on my deck reading the P&L thinking, we did not hit our goals last month. I actually do not know how we're going to pay people in the next handful of months. Yeah, you don't see all the times where I'm trying to balance too many things. As a father of 4 daughters, I love them, but I'm trying to be a good dad, a provider for my family, have that CrossFit body, which is still coming one day. An emotionally in-tune husband, and then we get home and trying to balance emails, laundry, driving to practice, cleaning all the dishes, and then at the end of a busy day, I lose my temper with my daughters at night, which is the last thing I wanted to do, right? And you don't see oftentimes the time when I'm in my bedroom at night, just overwhelmed with the demands of the day, and I take out from my bedstand a little card, and I just pray, God, have mercy on me, my God. Have mercy on me, for in you I take refuge. I take refuge in the shadow of your wings until the disaster has passed. When I'm in a business context, oftentimes, we feel like we have it all put together, but the frame, I think, for this conference needs to be, we are first people that not just extend mercy, but we need mercy. I need mercy. In the Bible, mercy is not a small topic. It is not a small topic. You actually see it all over the place. So you see it, God in his mercy sends Joseph in Egypt to save the lives of thousands in a famine. And then Joseph, instead of giving his brothers what they deserve, he welcomes them back with forgiveness, right? God in his mercy sees this great city of Nineveh, which is a brutal society, sends Jonah to go preach to them. They repent, and Jonah is actually ticked off that God is so merciful. He's just ticked off. Or my favorite story is the story of the prodigal son. He squanders all the capital provided by his father to go build a good business and build his legacy. He squanders it all, and the father runs out to him and embraces him as a son. I have a theory about our business culture today. Our business culture, I think, rather than being built around mercy, it's much more built around power. So power actually, I think, moves much more capital than anything. So businesses, as it's done today, revolves around the accumulation of power. And I think oftentimes it looks a little bit like this, that investors with the most capital determine the fates of many. But when you talk to these investors, I think what's interesting is they don't believe they have that much power. Above them seems to be something kind of hidden, and that's controlling them. Some call it money and their needs for return or stay competitive, but I think actually at the top of this system, where power is accumulated at the top, there are these sort of dark forces that are actually sort of shifting in the world, and that Jesus says, actually the powers or these things that are shifting in our economy, actually they're not ultimate anymore. Jesus in his resurrection is ultimate. I actually think in the kingdom of God, power is actually given away sacrificially, right, for the benefit of others. And I actually think business for the common good, when we're in a place like this, investors can serve management can serve employees actually can serve customers, and it can just be a huge benefit to all involved. We did a program at Denver Institute called the 5280 Fellowship, and we assigned an article by a guy named David Brooks. David Brooks is a New York Times columnist, and he talked years ago to a group of Christian philanthropists, and he did offer some friendly criticism years ago, and he cautioned them, this group, in terms of withdrawing from culture. He also said, oftentimes Christians can be feeling almost spiritually superior to others, but he also said something interesting. He said, Christians offer something really valuable to our culture and to our economy. He offers what he calls an inverse logic. So secular society works by an economic logic, David Brooks says. Effort leads to reward, input leads to output, investment leads to profit. But he said this to this group of Christian philanthropists. He says, but you worship a Savior who teaches an inverse logic. You have to give to receive. Success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. Failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning. In order to fulfill yourself, you have to forget yourself. In order to find yourself, you have to lose yourself. Christians, I do think, really offer an upside-down vision of business. And Jesus said it simply, the greatest among you will be your servant. I want to ask, what would it look like for us to do mercy or to be humble in business, right? I want to tell you, one other story. It's a story of a guy named John. So John was in prison for 19 years. He was convicted of a minor offense, but he tried to escape several times, and they tossed him right back into jail each time. And after he got out of jail, his heart was bitter and cold. Prison actually made him a criminal. And so while on parole, John was looking for a place to live, and he just had the possessions on his back. And one night, a pastor took him in. So he gave him a meal, a warm place to stay. And John was actually sleeping that night and saw up on the mantle a Rolex, this pastor's prized possession that was gifted to him by his father. So John knew this was his opportunity to start his life afresh. And so he took that Rolex in the middle of the night, he stole it and went out into the middle of the night. So the next week, the police dragged John back to the pastor's house and said, "We found him with this Rolex. Reverend, I believe this is yours?" And the pastor said directly to John, "John, I'm glad to see you, but you left too fast. You forgot the gold jewelry and the silverware I'd meant to give you. Why did you leave so fast in the night?" So, of course, you guys know this story. This is from Les Miserables. This is Jean Valjean and Victor Hugo's classic. And I wanted to share this quote of what the pastor says, I think, at the beginning of this event to all of us. He says, "Jean Valjean, my brother, you no longer belong to evil but to good. It is your soul that I buy from you. I withdraw it from black thoughts and the spirit of perdition, and I give it to God." See, it would have been enough if we'd have just received mercy and forgiveness, but we received this additional gift. We not only get the Rolex, but all the gold and the silver and the jewelry, all of the riches of heaven. Business for the common good is about we received everything that we need, and now we are free to love, and we are now free to give. I wonder, what would it look like for us to live out business for the common good, right? What if instead of starting the day with a news feed that causes all sorts of anxiety, which I oftentimes do, but we actually just pause to receive the joy and the presence of God, right? Rather than just kind of responding to the blistering demands of business, and we're all over busy, I get it, but what if we paused and thought, what's good in my industry? What's broken? And what might I be called to do to solve some of these big issues that my industry is facing? What if rather than serving money or serving power or that big exit one day, what if we really believed that business is actually here to serve our customers and our suppliers and our vendors and our employees? And I do wonder about the next 10 years of business for the common good if our AI overlords allow us to live the next 10 years. But what would it look like for us to really create a movement of men and women in finance, healthcare, business, real estate, all these different industries that are committed to love and good deeds, as my friend Jim Howie has said? Today, you're going to hear all sorts of examples of men and women living out their faith through their work. And in the last 10 years, I've been inspired by these people. Like last year, we had the chance to hear from great saints like Uli Chi, who inspired us to think about wisdom in leadership. Years ago, my friend John Marsh taught us to see real estate as a chance to repair broken cities. Or one of my favorite memories was Lisa Slayton and David Park after David shared some of his story about really failing with his kids. He's like, what does it look like for us to be wholehearted in business? I aspire to these kinds of people, and yet I do think, I'm a little dysfunctional, as my wife knows. Founders are dysfunctional. Like, how are we going to actually find a way to do this on a day-to-day basis? I am convinced that we can change. I am convinced that we can actually grow in this, and it comes from refocusing our attention. I think our attention needs to be on actually just the single sentence summary of the gospel, which is found in the Gospel of John. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. I think when we pause and fix our gaze on him, we find ourselves free, that we have everything we need in Jesus. Our hearts can be content, and this can free us up to serve, right? Put in actually a practical context in the terms of money, this is what A.W. Tozer says about money. He says, the man who has God for his treasure has all things in one. Many ordinary things, many ordinary treasures may be denied him, or if he's allowed to have them, the enjoyment of them will be so tempered that they will never be necessary to his happiness. Or if he must see them go one after one, he will scarcely feel a sense of loss for having the source of all things he has in one, all satisfaction, all pleasure, and all delight. Whatever he may lose, he has actually lost nothing, for he now has it all in one. He has it purely, legitimately, and forever. When we dethrone power or success or money in business, and we actually have everything we need in Jesus and the heart is content, it opens up the pathway to mercy in business, to caring for others. It opens up what I believe to be a fun, joyous journey, which is business for the common good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. My name is Marcy McGovern, and I'm delighted to serve on the board of directors for Denver Institute. As a financial advisor, I have experienced and want others to experience the paradigm shift that happens when we see our everyday work as pleasing to God and as a way to love our neighbors. Programming like the Faith and Work podcast catalyzes this change, and we are just getting started. As Denver Institute pursues its mission to prepare people to serve God and others through their daily work, we look forward to seeing our workplaces and cities transform. But that cannot happen without the support of our listeners. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard on the Faith and Work podcast, or if your life has been shaped by a Denver Institute event, the fellowship, a cohort, or our many publications, I encourage you to financially support this mission. Whether you join me as a monthly partner or give a one-time gift, your support helps workers, workplaces, and communities experience the hope and the life that Christ provides. Visit the Give page at denverinstitute.org. That's denverinstitute.org.
I love to start out with our people. We know our employees are so much more than their job, and they are looking for so much more from their job, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. Our employees can be our biggest asset and bring us our greatest joy and celebration, but they can also require a lot of time and can be a lot of challenge. So I'm going to share some of our journey here in this work in the workplace around purpose. And I want to take us back just after 9/11, when we started our business. Many of you know me as one of the founding partners of Wayfield Group. We are a commercial industrial electrical contractor. Started that business with 3 other partners, Pete Ferreni, James Selecki, and Seth Anderson. We were pivoting from data center work. That was not happening after 9/11. And we decided that we had a business plan and we were going to create something that would succeed past us. It would be a leader in workforce development, take care of our people, and give back to the communities. And here we went on with this business plan, and we started in Pete's basement. We took our savings, tools, equipment, everything we had, and we put it into the company. It wasn't glamorous. We didn't pay ourselves. We were starting in a bad economy, no local relationships, in a very competitive environment here in the Rocky Mountain Range. And it was neat to see how God was with us through all of that and had blessed our work. And our work started out with some of this mercy work. So as we're starting to get our first jobs, we realized, gosh, we want to do stuff on the community side. And we're working with at-risk youth and at-risk adults. And we have this big workforce need. Construction was taken out of our schools in the late 80s, so we didn't have a lot of connection and warmth and opportunity and help on the workforce development side. Thankfully, we've made a lot of progress, and we now have our different industries back into our schools, so that's neat to see. Construction is one of the 6 largest employers in most of our states, and so it's been a neat journey just seeing this building different careers within construction. So workforce need, and we had this community charity need, and we thought, you know, we have a warehouse. What if we take this power of a job, and we take these at-risk youth, at-risk adults, and we start training them on components around electrical, around safety, and a pre-apprenticeship program. And we were developing, didn't know at the time, we were developing our fabrication program, which is now many locations and many states across the country. When we started this program, we didn't think, oh, we need XYZ people to matriculate into our apprenticeship program. We just did it because it was the right thing to do. And so we set up a structured environment. We started this training. We started having folks go out into our apprenticeship and out into the field. And our field leaders and our teams would say, oh my goodness, like, where are you finding these candidates? They're super engaged, excited, and they're on fire. Little did they know, many of them, this was their last opportunity for a job, for a team to believe in them, for somebody to be able to pay for their apprenticeship and have this career opportunity. So this was neat. We didn't know how our employees were going to, if they would share their stories and if our employees would accept them. We didn't talk about it, we just started doing this. And it was neat to see, stories were shared, tough backgrounds, tough past, criminal activity, and our employees were like, okay, that's the person in the rearview mirror. How do we look at the person and where you're going forward and this opportunity for a career in construction? And so play this forward. God continues to bless this. This was not a popular thing to do. At the time, you could not get your electrical license if you had any type of criminal justice background. So we worked with the State Electrical Board. We worked with DORA Regulatory Agency to set up a hearing. And what could that look like for those that had shown, productive citizens and they need this opportunity to continue their career and provide for their family. So now that's part of the process. More people are connecting with different nonprofits in this area. And so play that forward. We continue to grow the business and we learned that we're a bit of a unicorn. 99 out of 100 businesses never reach over $10 million within annual revenue. And 0.004% of companies, founding companies like us, stay together and ever reach over 100 million a year. Well, we're hitting all of these stats. We're blowing it out of the water. God's blessing our growth. We're going into multiple states. We're growing almost every year we're in business. We're acquiring other companies. And then we have the opportunity where someone approaches us to be acquired. And what would that look like if we start to pull our regions together, our states together, work together? And so we decide to become part of Loenbro. Loenbro is a national contractor, now not just doing electrical services, we're doing multi-craft services. And now we're in multiple states across the region, employing over 4,200 employees. And the exciting piece for this, with us and becoming part of this, is we now are a faith-based business. So this is completely different. And we're leading with that. I can lead with all the other things I just talked about, but we're leading now with this faith-based piece. So what does that look like for us? So again, when we were building our company, we knew that life was happening in the workplace. And when we started the company, we thought, we're going to take care of all this life coming into the business with the basic benefits that we set up. And we wanted to have them to be better than anybody else was doing that. So we're being thoughtful about how many vacation days and having more PTO days than others. How do we pay 100% of health insurance when others weren't? How do we pay 100% of apprenticeship when others weren't? Okay, now let's start paying for the books. Anything we could make it better for our people, we were working on that culture piece. 401k, we not only want to educate everybody, please take opportunity of this free money, matching money we're giving, but let's it be vested and let it immediately go to our employees. So any of those things we were working on, thinking, right, we're doing the right thing, we're taking care of our people, we're going to build this great culture. And then we realized life is still happening and it's coming into the business. Calls would come in, conversations would come in. My daughter's trying to commit suicide. My wife has left me. I have to take care of an elderly parent. I have mental health issues with somebody in my family. Transportation, just the issues were real and life was heavy and happening. So we realized we need to add more services to support our employees and do this connecting and offering mercy. So we start to work with different nonprofits, employee assistance programs. So they're offering free counseling programs, free coaching, quit smoking, figure out transportation, elder care, child care, all different types of trainings, really neat services that those nonprofits provide. And then part of Loenbro, we also have the opportunity now to offer chaplain services. So I'm pretty sure chaplain services are here. That's been neat to have chaplains meet with our different office teams. They meet on our different job sites. Just 2 weeks ago on a job site, we had another subcontractor. Our team found the gentleman on the floor. He had had a heart attack. They worked to try to resuscitate him. They weren't successful and the gentleman passed away. That's traumatic. Shut down the job site. So chaplains go out to not only serve our team, serve that entire job site, other subcontractors, to talk through that process of grief, to celebrate this gentleman that passed away and our team that tried to save his life, right? So these chaplain services, all these things are just really a neat fabric of life that's going on and how we're taking care of people. So this journey continues for us to figure out how to show up well with all of our employees. And when I start talking about these things, some of it feels like, wow, we're just talking about, the tough stuff with life and happening with our employees. But let me also talk about the celebratory piece, right? Celebrate at every turn. Our employees want to be seen, they want to be known, and there's so much to celebrate. We actually have a procedure around a lot of our celebratory things that we do. So celebrating different birthdays, anniversary gifts. We have a whole lineage of all these different things that you can get when you have anniversaries with our company. There's a marriage, there's a birth, you win a race. We have all these children in different competitions, winning state, just neat things. That is this whole family and this community and this culture at work. We look at how we're serving. We have a community team of about 25 people, and they work to help our company serve over 100 different nonprofits each year. How do we get our employees engaged with that? How do we work with our clients? We have a client strategy plan for each client we work with, and how does that look like, and how we're spending time with them, how we align with them in values, and what we're doing in the community. So pulling our clients out into community events or doing things that our clients are passionate about on the nonprofit side. We are celebrating working in schools. We're doing all different types of service projects, fun things. It could be a game. It could be taking the families to a harvest festival. We're doing cornhole tournaments to celebrate graduation. I feel like we are a construction company, but half the time it's like an event management company. There's just so much going on, and it's so fun, and it is engaging for our employees. I think one of our events that employees sign up for the fastest is to shoot each other at the paintball event. So that's really fun. And then also just celebrating our people outside of the company and putting our individual employees up for awards in the industry, our projects in the industry. And so we just are celebrating at every turn. And that continues to be this piece of purpose and this piece of community. So as I'm sharing all of this, right, there's a lot in there, a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, and a lot of intention. And so I always say, God bless our HR teams and our leadership, because this need for business to engage with employees and this focusing on our workforce is a lot, and it requires a budget, it requires planning. But I always stop us here and I say, don't let it feel heavy. I encourage us that this is an opportunity for business to be this force for good. And I love the data behind this. You probably heard of a good job, a quality job. There's all this data now. Deloitte, Fortune, Department of Labor, there's so many different research studies on this. I like Deloitte's definition of a good job. When we look at that, we're like, yeah, we want to provide a good place for our people, focus on our people, have advancement opportunity, training, have equity where people have an opportunity to advance in the company. But if you see at the end, it talks about a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. If you're going through this as a checklist, you're trying to have KPIs, and how do you measure that? That's pretty like, how do you measure sense of belonging? How do you measure sense of purpose? Like as a business owner, leader, that's a lot. When Deloitte surveys companies, they ask if this is something that's important to do, this human sustainability and focusing on people and purpose and sense of belonging. 76% of companies say that this is important work. They should be doing it. 46% of businesses are doing something in this place, but only 10% of businesses are really doing something significant in this area. And so this is where I say, wow, this is this opportunity where you can differentiate in your industry from competition by doing small things that dial back to the individual and seeing your employee and knowing your employee and your teams and creating a culture. And it can be different in all of your different businesses, but this is an opportunity to set yourself apart. For those of you that look at ROI and look at the data, it shows that there's a 2.2% 5-year return on equity for companies that are focusing on this work. So purpose in the workplace. Earlier, Ross talked about some purpose data. I'm going to ask you the opposite question from some of the Gallup polls. What percentage of employees do you think are engaged in the workplace? Shout out an answer and see if you paid attention to his stat earlier. What percentage of your employees are showing up, 0 to 100, are engaged in the workplace? 50, 32, 15, 24. Got a grim group here. Okay. Usually when you ask, people, they're like, I don't know, over half the employees should be engaged in the workplace, right? But the data's showing here in the US, 31% of employees are engaged. Like, that hurts my heart as a founding partner, an owner, leader, someone that's been at this for many, many years, caring for our people, focusing, drive. You could ask my team, this is what drives all the stuff that we do in the workplace, is making people feel special, they belong, they can connect. And interesting thing here is the data shows that those companies that are focusing on purpose, belonging, culture, setting the vision, communication, and collaboration, that engagement increases up to over 70%. So some local foundations got with Gallup and they said, if purpose in the workplace can move this needle from 31% to over 70% engagement, Gallup, please do a study on this. So there's a recent study from Gallup on purpose, and it's so exciting. I love the data. When Gallup talks about, asks individuals, hey, rate the things that you find purpose in. You can pick 3 things. No surprise, family shows up at the top. We have friends, or work shows up second, showing identity. You can have this sense of purpose at work. We spend a lot of time at work. Then you have family, friends, hobbies, and then you see faith on there. Like, yes, this is what I've been working for all these years, and believing that we can combine all of these things in the workplace. We spend so much time out of church. We spend most of our time at work, right? You have this opportunity to combine all these things together. A different way of looking at the data. Left side of the screen is less engaged, right side of the screen is very engaged. So employees that are finding businesses that align with those things they just ranked as things that are important to them, showing purpose for them, businesses that align with that, to the right, we're now showing 45%. It aligns with purpose. I'm more engaged. The next column over, the 43%, I'm still kind of open. I'm looking. People can ping me. Recruiters can do that. But the stressed out and the burnt out categories are much lower. So this purpose thing is real, right? So I love the data on that. For us at Loenbro, we look at, I serve now as the Chief Revenue Officer for this larger company, and great opportunity. We look at our mission, vision, values. We boil it down to something really simple into our LEAD acronym. If you were to take any of our values, I would say you could just take the live with integrity and drop the mic, right? You're just going to show up all the time, doing the right thing, and you're going to be good stewards of your relationship with your team, with the client, and with our community. That kind of sums it all up. So these show up not just in training, not just in Employee of the Month, not just in annual awards, not just in newsletter interviews. It shows up in our reviews. So twice a year, employees are rated on our values. So we're pushing this value thing. And as we continue to do training in this journey and purpose, we also are having more conversation about how can we drive purpose into all the positions at work, okay? So past these values, how do we pull this all together? And we used to train an electrician, and we would talk about, okay, what you're building in this room or this panel that you're building, this is how it connects on the floor, into the building, into the one line, our switchgear room, whatever, the larger concept of what you're building in this building. And now we're working with our leaders to talk about, well, what about the purpose, how these values are showing up, and our purpose in a bigger scope. So as an apprentice on my wastewater or water treatment job, my purpose is to bring clean water to that community. As an electrician, as a plumber, as a welder, on my data center site, my purpose is to bring connectivity to the world. On my healthcare job, to save life, to give life. You can kind of see where this purpose thing can go. Our support teams, right? A lot of them are talking about, my purpose here at work is to make everybody better, to make sure they're connected with all these resources we have. They're connected to our community. They have career paths. They're retiring well in our industry. So there's all these different lanes of how we can pull this purpose thing in, and we are still on the journey and figuring it out. I leave you with this verse on the leadership side, and many of you have seen this, and you probably think about, okay, I'm going to say everybody here in this room is a leader by title or not, is my guess, right? You're here looking to get different data and ideas of how to spur yourself on to good deeds here in the workplace. But I want to take a different angle on this verse. So we're called to lead people, right? To lead this flock that God has entrusted us to. And it says that he wants us to do it because we want to serve, not because we have to. And some of the translation is to not do it begrudgingly. And this has hit me pretty hard, different times of my career, and also working with different leaders. It's not like it's sunshine and roses all the time. And good night, especially not in construction. I have lots of stories, and that's a whole other book that I could write. But when times are tough, right, are we realizing that God has put us in this position for a reason, and we need to rely on Him, not on ourselves, and not complain about our employees, and not do this begrudgingly, right? I don't want to be that person in the industry. And if my team or any of my associates here that I know, please give me a little slap across the face, because this is a big responsibility we have to serve God and to do it, right? Because we want to and because it's a privilege. So no matter where you're at in your journey, I just encourage you with this purpose work. It's important. There's small things you can take, different things you can take. I hope I gave you different examples, but I just encourage you to be this force for good with all the tools and resources that God's entrusted you. It makes a huge difference in the lives of our employees and our lives of our people. So God bless you.
Thank you for listening to both Jeff and Karla's talk. I hope you were encouraged by that. You know, it's not every day that you hear business talks that include things about mercy, but that was an incredible opportunity just to reframe what we're doing when we show up in our jobs. And it's not just business jobs, it's every kind of work. It's really an opportunity to extend mercy. Jeff reminded us that we should think of ourselves as the person on the side of the road in the Good Samaritan story who has been beaten. Maybe it's not physically, but maybe because you're overworked, or because you've been passed over for a job, or because somebody's taken one of your views and used it against you somehow, and you have experienced just being beaten up in your space. Recognize that God has extended His mercy to you. And Karla's story is a powerful testament that when we actually live mercy out in our everyday work through wages, second chance hiring, how we celebrate one another, making the workplace a place of belonging, the world takes notice. Actually, employee retention goes up, customers are happy, and the data demonstrates all of that in all of the ways that she showed us through the research that she's done. So here's my question for you as you head back to your everyday work, whether it's a meeting or an email or a responsibility you enjoy or one that you don't enjoy. Where can you find opportunities to extend mercy? Where can you find opportunities to receive the mercy that God has for you through Jesus? If you've enjoyed these talks, we would really love for you to share them with some people who need to hear them. You can leave us a review or a comment. We'd love to hear back from you. Thanks for listening, and God bless you in your work this week.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Faith and Work podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. The Faith and Work podcast is produced by Denver Institute. We believe that when Christians work faithfully, the world will taste the hope and life that Jesus provides. To learn more or to make a financial contribution, visit denverinstitute.org.